And we're live. Good afternoon. I'm Joshua Paul, Marketing Director at SampleServe. Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We have a short presentation, should take about 20 minutes, about third-party sampling. Just a reminder, you can ask your questions anytime in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Today I have Andrew Clark here, Environmental Supervisor at Field and Technical Services. And we also have Russell Schindler, CEO at SampleServe. So I'm going to let you guys take it away.
All right. Thanks, Josh. So one of the common questions here, and Andrew's online here too as well. Mm-hmm. One of the common questions when we talk about third-party sampling is what does third-party mean, actually? Third-party is basically when you have a company that is separate from the main contractor. So you've got the client, you've got the consulting engineering company, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be environmental, but third party is just a separate company that's brought in to usually to provide a specialized work. There's all kinds of examples of that. One of those examples would be in the construction industry. It's like a roofing contractor or an electrician or a plumber. They typically specialize in that type of work, and they become very good at it. One of the examples is a roofer, right? A roofer typically provides you a cost on a per square. A square is a 10 by 10 area of roofing, and they give you a cost for that, and they become very good at it because they specialize in it. They know the cost of the shingle, the cost, how they measure your roof, how many squares is it. They've installed enough to know exactly how many hours or minutes it'll take per square, and so that's how they provide that cost to you. Anyway, and then they maintain all the certifications of training equipment on that type of work. Andrew, you probably got some examples for third-party work.
Yeah, so just some other examples that might help people understand. Title service companies and real estate companies use at closing. That's an independent person coming in, usually a notary, to complete the paperwork for closing on a house. Other examples are delivery companies. FedEx, UPS, they've been around forever. But since the pandemic, things have changed a little bit. So, the DoorDashes of the world that are, stepping in as a third party to get, food or groceries from, the stores to the people.
And they specialize in that type of very unique delivery, like picking up your groceries and bringing it to your house. My girlfriend had COVID, and we used one of those grocery delivery things for the first time. And it was very efficient. They knew what they were doing.
So, and they may be out there, buying your groceries for you, picking them up and delivering them as well. So
yeah. So those are kind of examples of third-party companies. One of the things about specialization in, say, the roofing industry, if you paid a roofer time and materials and they didn't do the unit cost, this per square cost, the nail gunner would have never been invented, right? If they're getting paid time and materials, well, then creating those efficiencies, inventing the tools to make things faster just isn't going to happen. So in the environmental world, some examples of third-party companies are drillers or remediation contractors who install remediation systems, or even O&M companies. And you guys do O&M as well. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yeah, that's what we are. We're an O&M company specialized in operations, maintenance, monitoring. So that's what our group does. And we have different divisions within that. We have samplers that are specialized in sampling of various kinds, groundwater, surface water, sediment, soils, anything out there environmental related, we can do for you.
Yeah. And, another example of, using a third-party contractor and how they provide costs. I've been behind a lot of drill rigs, hire drilling companies, and there's a couple of ways you can hire a drilling company to install monitoring wells or soil borings. One is on a per foot basis, where it's a very clearly defined scope of work. You know exactly how many you're going to do and where you're going to do them. And then they just give you a cost per foot. And then there's another ones where you don't really know where the next sample is going to be at. And that's typically a time and materials. So when you're working with a contractor that's doing a per foot, good luck keeping up with those guys, because they know the more footage they do in a day, the more money they make. And so they're, busting their butts to try and get things done. Whereas if it's time and materials, they don't mind, standby time or anything like that. So, so the contractor, third party, whether it's a unit cost or time and materials, could be a big deal.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So just some other examples of software or of third party companies in the environmental software companies like you guys, Russell, SampleServe. I mean, there was a time that FTS developed a software tool to do electronic data collection, and we still have that. We use it. But over the years, you realize that technology moves pretty quick, and, we can't keep up with that. So to team with a third party, company like SampleServe to have the most up-to-date software, working out all the bugs so you're not having issues in the field, that lets us focus on what we're good at, and then Russell can focus on what he's good at.
Yeah. And so a third-party sampling company is obviously, what you guys are. You specialize in collecting samples. And because you specialize, you're good at it, right? I mean, you're efficient. You've got all the equipment, the tech, the supplies that are needed, and all your employees are trained. And you maintain all that training and certification.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a specialized third-party sampling company. I mean, that's what we do. And we do some other stuff, on top of that. But the folks that we have in-house are brought in, they're trained, they're, sampling specialists, professionals, if you want to call them that. They know exactly what they're doing. And we are hired to do those specific tasks. And like I said before, that can be groundwater, that can be surface water, wastewater. I mean, anything environmental related, it's right up our alley. And our guys are, trained and have, good experience in doing that.
In sampling a well anymore, I mean, obviously there's different types of sampling techniques, but sampling a well is a pretty clear, defined scope of work, right? You're going to go out there and do, maybe low flow sampling or surface water sampling, any kind of sampling like that, or, wastewater sampling. Very clearly defined scope of work. And because it is clearly defined, you're able to provide like a unit price, right? Which helps develop the total cost estimate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we tend to try to do is get that unit pricing set in place, because, it's easier for all parties involved when you have that clear defined scope of work, exactly what you're doing, and then that carries over into the cost as well. So it just simplifies everything, and less paper trailing on everybody's end there.
Yeah. And so one of the other benefits of using a third-party sampling company is you contract for a specific scope of work. The field parameters you're going to collect, if you need certain forms filled out. And so the sampling and the procedures and the parameters are the same at every location every time, right? Which then allows you to, because of with that tied with the cost forecasting, because of the unit prices, allows people to very easily predict what their expenses are going to be.
Well, I think you're hitting on it, Russell. I think the benefits of having a third-party company do the sampling, I mean, honestly, it's endless, because first and foremost, like you said, you're getting specialized training. We've said that several times, because that is the main part of this. But you're also getting consistency, not only in the procedures that we're doing in the field, but you're getting that consistency in the data and reporting functions that come back to you as the client.
And because of the unit costs, if you have a scope of work, say you're going to sample 10 locations, but for some reason you need to up it to 12, everyone knows what the cost is going to be. Because
exactly. And that speaks for itself. If it's minor tweaks like that, the cost is up front. So unit price, if you need to take off 2 wells, or, there was a well we couldn't find and we didn't do, you know what the cost is going to be. So it's very simplified in having that unit pricing for projecting even out into the future for future events. You already have an idea of what it's going to cost you.
And then another benefit is it allows the lead consulting engineering company to really focus on what they're good at, right? The science of the project, the remediation that maybe needs to go on, or just the strategy in terms of getting to closure. They can concentrate on those things versus worrying about logistics of, who's going to go do and sample, and do they have the equipment and the bottles?
Yeah, exactly. We work for a lot of consultants, and you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, it minimizes supervision necessary from the consultant. They can focus on what they need to focus on. So that reduction in oversight, coordination. I mean, we all know what it takes to get an event going, and those guys don't have to worry about having the right paperwork, having maps, all the equipment, the bottle orders, vehicles and access and all that stuff. I mean, that's just stuff that's so routine to us. We've had this process in place for 16 years since we started in 2006. We have that process in place again, and we keep continually providing that service to our clients and even consultants too, that really either they don't have the personnel or they just need help.
Yeah, and because of your specialization in that type of service, you're always looking for new ways of doing things. Innovation, how can you shave off 15 seconds on a process just to make it more efficient? If you can shave off enough time, you can get more work done, and without sacrificing quality, obviously.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, innovation is one of the benefits that it might be overlooked when you're looking at contractors, but again, because they're so specialized in what they do, as a third party company, we're always looking for the latest and greatest technologies to help us out. Anything that we can do to make something automatic.
Sorry about that.
We're looking at that. Any sort of technologies, the latest trends in how to do stuff. I mean, as a third party company, we're trying to better ourselves, so we're always looking for that stuff.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the nail gun example, because a roofer specializes in installing roofs, and he's doing it on unit cost. That's why the nail gun was invented, to do a same quality job putting the nails in, but do it a lot faster. And so, talk a little bit about currently there's a very tight labor market. It's hard to find help. If you go on LinkedIn, you see everyone's trying to hire right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're all affected by that. Again, we talked about it before. We could do an entire presentation on just the shortages of labor right now, but we're going to focus on, the third party sampling and consultants, and they have to go through a hiring process, and they have to do training, and they have to carry safety certifications, and I mean, the list goes on and on. So if you have big projects, a few big projects a year, and you're trying to get those done, it might not make sense to try to hire full-time people to do that.
Yeah. If you're doing a lot of sampling, it might make sense. But if you're not specializing in sampling, it just makes sense to bring in a company that has the staff and the training and the equipment.
The equipment. I mean, that's a big thing. The equipment. We have all the equipment you need to do a groundwater sampling event. It's some things, every once in a while we may have to rent, but we have the inventory, we have the equipment and the resources to get that done. So there's no need for other companies to carry that burden of trying to carry all that equipment.
Right. And then from a competitive standpoint, right, when you're using a third party company, there's lots of them out there. It allows you to just basically get competitive pricing, right? So it allows the cost, there's the competitive nature, it just naturally decreases the price of a project.
Yeah, sure. All third party companies want to be competitive and get that edge cost wise. And another advantage too, that may not be talked about so much, that if you're not happy with a contractor or a third party company, you can easily cut ties with them, as opposed to employees that, there's a process that it takes to.
It's a lot more difficult. Yeah. And then, again, we kind of already touched on this, but it then allows that project manager to really concentrate on the high value work, the remediation or the closure that needs to happen. And then happy customers, if they're, more productive, obviously means happy, clients, and which leads to bigger market share. So there are some other industries out there, not just the environmental industry, that actually require third-party sampling. Asbestos is one of them. My early career, I actually did some asbestos sampling and air clearance stuff. When you do a asbestos remediation project, it's required by law in many states, if not all of them, for a third-party company come in and clear the area, test the air and make sure it's safe for occupancy. Do you guys do any of that kind of work?
We don't do any asbestos work, but
Yeah, it's very specialized. Yeah,
absolutely. So what we do specialize in is we have oil and gas clients that we do work for, and just some of the work that goes into that as far as like sampling. States require a third-party laboratory to analyze those samples, and clients could use the laboratory to collect those samples, but some of our clients will take it another step and say, okay, I know I have to use the lab, but I want this third-party sampling company to do the sampling because I know that's what they do.
Yeah.
And they get better results, they get better data. It makes sense.
So mold is another industry that, some insurance companies and even states require a third-party company. Obviously, if you're the mold remediation company and you're doing your own clearance sampling, there's potential for some bias there. And so having that third-party company minimizes that kind of potential bias. Cannabis, which is an emerging market in many states as they legalize cannabis, as the states legalize cannabis, especially recreational, they're requiring third-party sampling. So a grower can't test his own product, can't sample his own product. They're required to use a third-party company and a third-party laboratory so that the results come back, hopefully free of bias. Knowing whether or not there's contaminant in any given kind of product or a drug like that, contaminant levels and also concentrations are very important. And they're just trying to eliminate that bias and make sure that the testing is science focused rather than, influenced by other mechanisms.
Yeah. And the bias is a good point, just to add to that. Like our personnel, they're following plans, approved plans, whether they're, agency approved plans, procedures within those plans. They're collecting samples at the permitted outfall and no alternative locations. So, we're focused on providing the client with good data is basically what it comes down to.
And so bottom line, what third-party sampling means for a person needing some sampling is reduced cost, right? Because of the competitive nature, it's typically reduced or a unit price, which then allows you to forecast your costs over long term, right? If you have a unit cost and the scope goes up or down, you can forecast that change. And then also because you specialize and you're using digital data collection methods, it means that your data is delivered in real time, right? You collect that in the field. The data is delivered literally almost instantly, which means better communication because you can see potential miscues or mistakes or typos or anomalies quicker. That communication happens faster, increased data quality, right? You could, again, if you're typing things in wrong, that becomes apparent rather than seeing it a week later, you see it literally within minutes. Then all of that means you can deliver data or reports faster, right? Because there is a consulting engineering reporting capability in some of the techniques that you're using, including SampleServe, that the reports can be delivered quicker. So if somebody, so why don't you tell me a little bit about the sampling stuff that you guys do?
Yeah, so you can see the list here. Some of the things that are highlighted there, low flow, and we have some alternative methods. I mean, hydrosleeves, PDBs. I mean, we have tons of experience using those. And we also do sampling, POTW, NPDS sampling, stormwater involved in that, industrial waste involved in that. But
the most important part is you guys have like the staff that are trained and do this type of sampling.
Absolutely. I was just going to say the best thing that we offer that's not on this list and is our people. It's our personnel. They're well trained. They know what's expected of them, and they genuinely care about the work that they do and the product that we provide to our clients. We pride ourselves on working hard here at FTS, and we do everything we can to satisfy our client needs, and give a good product at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
as you can see here, it's just a list of some of the clients that we do work for right now. And it's just a snippet of that.
Yep.
Um,
So if somebody wanted to hire you as a third-party company, how would they go about that?
Yeah, it's real simple. And my email's right there. You can email me directly. If you're interested or you want to just talk further about what we do, I think my cell phone number is on the first slide. Maybe it's on the next slide. That's my cell phone number. So, you can give me a call. We can talk about your needs, get some details of the project. Again, if you need help, just manpower, we've had consultants reach out before that just says, hey, do you guys have a couple technicians that can come up and help us out? We're more than willing to do that.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So Josh, if you want to, I don't know if we have any questions yet.
Just a reminder, anybody can ask any questions they want in the chat, and we can get to them. I got a couple questions, basic questions for both of you. We already have Rob from Burns McDonald looking for some contact information and everything. What especially for anybody nationwide watching this, considering possibly hiring FTS as a third-party sampling company, what areas do you guys cover?
Well, we're a nationwide service provider, so we cover California all the way down to Texas, Florida, up to the New England states and everywhere in between. We've got a program in place now that we have people traveling to those places, and I'm sure there's a way that we can, again, the process that we have in place, that we can figure out how to help anybody out, with whatever needs they have.
So you got a guy, huh?
Always have a guy.
So one of the things I would add is that FTS and SampleServe have worked out an agreement that if you hire FTS, our software is included. So they're going to use our software to collect the samples and collect the data. And then, you're going to be able to get in there and see your stuff automatically. So it's included in their sampling fees.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask. Andrew, you at FTS, what do you guys consider as the biggest differentiator between you and other sampling companies?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the specialized services. We talked about our people, right? We couldn't do this without them. But other things, digital tools and technology and software, and again, those latest trends of what's out there and how can we use them to help our clients, help ourselves. But the goal of doing everything, the goal of getting rid of paper is a real goal for our company. We want to do everything digitally. We want to be, the first ones to be doing that. And really I think that'll set us apart.
And Russell, with SampleServe, what digital tools do you think help sampling companies like FTS the most?
Well, the scope of work is instantly, if you make it, because we communicate both with the laboratory and with the field technicians and the project managers kind of all simultaneously. So if you make one change to the project, everybody is notified instantly, right? They know, like, drop this sample, add this sample. They can also do things in the field on the fly as well. So you can stray from the scope if need be in the field. But the key is that everybody's on the same page. And then if you're the project manager sitting in the office and your people are connected to the cloud, the thing's designed to work offline. But if they do have connectivity, you'll see the data coming in real time. There's been numerous instances where somebody's just sampled the wrong location, right? And they're able to determine that based on, the data coming in, or maybe they, had a missed key when they're typing in depth to water, or, where they'll be able to go, hey, your depth to water doesn't make sense. It's deeper than the whole well. So could you take another look at that? And, so those mistakes get caught early before they're, on paper back at the office and you're looking.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than having to go back and resample a well.
Right.
All right. Well, I think that does it for us today. I think you guys covered everything pretty well. We have some interest. I know that there's definitely interest out there for more third-party sampling, especially with the labor markets out there. Here we got something coming in from Glenn. He says, what do you think is the economic savings compared to in-house staff?
So, and I kind of skipped over it on this current slide. I'm paging back here. The cost savings, and we have a lot of data to back this up, is roughly 40 to 60% if you're using a third-party sampling company and SampleServe software. So 40 to 60%. I know it sounds like a lot, but we have the data to back it up. So on average, you're going to save about half when you're using third-party companies and digital methods. That's kind of the combination. And, it's a very disruptive kind of technology, but, your results may vary a little bit, but it's going to be a pretty substantial savings. It's not just a little bit. I can tell you that we make field people about 20% more efficient because they're not having to go back to the office and type data back in. And they're also not sitting in the parking lot of a laboratory frantically filling out a chain of custody before the lab closes, right? That chain of custody is done automatically on the mobile device. So there's lots of benefits. The single biggest one being that you never have to retype data again off of a piece of paper.
Yeah. Eliminating work that doesn't need to be done anymore.
Yeah. And there's savings on every category of work. So project management, the lab interface, field staff, as I mentioned, data management, and then the graphics and reporting from a consulting engineering company's perspective. The graphics and reporting is a big chunk of the cost, and we can reduce that cost dramatically.
It's great. Great question, Glenn. We have Andrew's email right here. If anybody's interested in, we can write up a quote for you real quick. All we need is just some project details. I think we're going to call it on that one, guys. You guys covered everything pretty well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys for your time and watching.
Thank you.
Available. Have a good one.
See you.